Okay, we're joined this week by Geoffrey Mead. Thanks for joining us, Jeff. And if you want to know more about Jeff's work, there's some links here to another reading and his profile. But yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the research you've been doing over the past few years and the stuff we're going to talk about today?
The research I've been doing over the past few years is looking into the sociology of technology, and that in our time often gets associated primarily with AI. So I've taken an interest in AI, and in particular the societal responses to AI. So being a sociologist, not just interested in the technology and how
Mm.
amazing it is, but also basically thinking of it as a problem that technology has thrown up for us in our politics and our society, and the question becomes how do we respond to it? How do we integrate it or maybe resist it, repel? These kinds of options are all available.
Yeah, and that's kind of how the course is reflected as well. We're interested in kind of the human
Yeah.
aspect of the technology, not necessarily the nitty-gritty aspects of the technology itself. We've had a little bit of that explanation in the course, but yeah, we're mostly interested in the human side of things. So, um, okay, so yeah, tell us a little bit about the background and how the project came around.
Yeah, so this particular project is looking at one kind of high level response to AI, or I'm looking into how certain bodies that are maybe transnational or national bodies, policymakers and those informing policy, uh, how they see themselves as responding to AI. So I take a bit of a what I think of as a counterintuitive approach to thinking of AI, where, as you can see here, that the a lot of people, whether it's the technology boosters like Elon Musk proposing kind of those Neuralink chips implanted in people's heads, or whether it's kind of just general policymakers, have described the condition that we're living in as one where we're increasingly interdependent. The technology isn't something that's separate from us, but whether increasingly maybe biologically or just as a link in our social interactions and our kind of administrative um, mechanisms, AI has become entangled, to put it the way that a lot of social science and philosophy academics put it. So these people who are talking about entanglement, interrelation, enfolding, and so on, they are speaking mostly about the non-human world, but they're talking about the environment. And this body of scholarship wants to kind of decenter the human, as they put it. They think a lot of the problems that we're in with climate change are attributable to the fact that we've thought of the world as being this thing separate from us that we can master and dominate, instrumentalize, and extract from. And so I wanted to approach AI in a similar way, since we are said to be interdependent with it, interrelated. What responses can we have to something that is not separate from us, but that we kind of are going to, it seems, have to live with? So that was the approach that I took, and overwhelmingly, as we'll see in a moment, but overwhelmingly, uh, this recognition of the interdependence hasn't changed the fact that, or it hasn't changed the response. And the response has been one of, we need to dominate it more, we need to control, we need to regulate and govern. So we're kind of, even though we are interrelated with the AI increasingly, we're still acting as if we're separate from it,
Yeah,
it seems.
yeah, it's interesting position, I suppose that. Um, Yeah, so that you're talking about here, governments and various kind of institutions and bureaucracies
Yes.
and NGOs are given the task of kind of engaging with the way that AI affects humans, and the idea then is to kind of regulate and dominate it.
Yeah.
But the other side of things, though, like a lot of the kind of AI critique is about how these things are being rammed down our throats as a way to dominate us, right?
Yes.
So, how do those things kind of relate?
Well, they relate in the sense that they still assume a kind of, a dualism of human versus AI.
Yep.
So it's coming from the same place.
Yep.
It's just it's almost like we are afraid of the power that it has over us, and the response is we need to govern it. It's almost like a fight with
Mm.
it. So it's still the same thing where it's we are opposed to the machine or we are opposed to the AI. It's just do we want to win or do we want to lose?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the same.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the study itself, the method.
yeah. So the study was done really in two directions or two steps. I describe it, but the first step I think of is not that enlightening, but we can see in a minute. But what I took was a number of these policy documents, whether they're produced by NGOs, governments, or intergovernmental agencies. So these are high-level policy
Mm.
uh, uh, documents, basically like trying to address the question of how are we to respond to AI, whether it's the UK government or the Australian government. All of these bodies are interested in how to meet the demands of AI, not just though primarily they want to exploit it for productivity, but they're also demonstrating an awareness that it's potentially threatening,
Yep.
and that it has been rammed down our throats, and there are privacy concerns, and there are uh, intellectual property concerns, and a whole host of
Job
things.
losses. Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, job losses, yeah. So basically, how do we live with it, or how do we respond? And so I analyzed these documents using a quantitative approach, which LDA it gets called. And basically what that is it's an algorithm that classifies documents. So you put your documents into the program, and it will try as best as it can to identify kind of common themes.
Mhm.
We often do this just with coding and qualitative analysis. This is
Yeah.
an automated approach to it, um, and it has varying outcomes.
Mm.
I think my outcomes were not that good,
Okay.
so I did a close reading of the text. It was guided still by the first part, but not.
Yep.
But I think that the findings were more interesting with the qualitative interpretation.
Oh, that's interesting. So you had the quant automated kind of themes being drawn out, and then what made you think that that wasn't the best way to do it?
Well, I don't find I like we'll see in just a second that I don't really think that the themes that it extracted were that interesting.
Right.
They were hard to interpret. It might be because of the way that I split the documents. It gets very technical in terms of actually how you feed the documents in. Do you separate them by paragraph or by line, or do you just throw the whole document in? Like
Okay.
it's yeah, and plus a lot of them interestingly use the same terminology, despite the fact that it's international sample.
Hmm.
The same terminology is used frequently, so there's not that much variation
Okay.
between the texts. So it might just not be that interesting on
Yeah.
a like identifying variation between the texts.
Yeah.
Just might not be the right
Yeah.
material for it.
It's a little bit ironic, isn't it, in the sense that the algorithmic AI kind of assemblages that the discourse is about, you kind of didn't necessarily produce the results about itself.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, and here, what do we have here? What explain to me
So
what
these
that
are
is.
these are the themes. These are the
Yep.
topics that it spits out. And basically, what it shows is that there are a number of overall main themes across the documents, and these are like kind of the development, the opportunities for productivity that seem to be the dominant thing that these documents were talking about. But they were also talking about the need for governance, regulation, control, and so on.
Mhm.
They spoke to a lesser extent about the public benefits, so not just kind of the benefits to industry, really, about productivity benefits, but also the public benefit in almost a non-economic way. They thought about it as offering something to society, and this might be in the health benefits or something like this. And then there was a bit of a miscellaneous category where they just said, there's stuff going on. There are relationships between AI and society, and we have to deal with these. But that's a little difficult to articulate. But it again comes back, it defaults to this idea of governance, management, and so on. So these were the themes that it that it extracted from the documents, and that I felt, it's kind of interesting a bit, but not very surprising. And yeah,
Yeah, a bit straightforward, kind of
yeah,
as expected in a way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um,
So yeah, and then you kind of start thinking about how AI itself has been represented in these discourses.
yeah. So it's a puzzling thing because it rarely ever gets defined, or when it is defined, it's
Mm.
defined in a really elementary way, or in a way that's not distinct from other approaches. Like, if you do quantitative statistical research, the descriptions they give are just kind of like a regression analysis or something. It's just like it's trying to predict the next observation or something. It's hard to exactly say what AI is. And I think that's because it seems to be so many different things. It hovers over
Mm.
the discourse. And I thought of it in a way, to this by analogy to the notion of dirt in this anthropologist, Mary Douglas, a classic anthropology book, Purity and Danger,
Hmm.
where she says basically humans have this overriding need for order. We do not like things to be out of place. We don't like disorder, and things that violate our categories we consider to be dirty, and these are things that need to be purified.
Mm.
And
Matter out of place is the classic
yes,
quip,
yes,
isn't it? Yeah, matter out of place. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Dirt is just matter out of place.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think AI, in a way, is this kind of dirt, not that it gives rise to feelings of repulsion, though among some people it does,
It does. Yeah.
but it is this thing that kind of a we can't handle something that eludes categorization. So we tend to just reduce it to things that are already familiar, or
Mm.
to some just futuristic, some possibility.
Yeah.
Um,
It's often dystopian or kind of, paradise. It's kind of, yeah, seems
exactly.
to kind of
Yeah.
between those things as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
What do
then
you notice?
in the qualitative analysis, then I thought of it as this kind of thing that's a bit of an assumed
Mm.
thing. People don't usually waste their time trying to explain it. It's almost like we we just know what it is, and so
Yeah,
you
like a
can
black
imagine.
suit. We've used the suitcase thing earlier in the course, so like the
Yeah,
black box kind of who knows what it
yeah,
is. It's just all in there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And here's an example of the UK National AI Strategy, where it can mean a lot of things. No single definition. The idea that it's almost defined by the fact that there's no single definition. Like every definition contains this qualifier. There's no definition for this thing we're defining. But they just call it general purpose. It's just general, many possible applications. Like it
Mm.
itself is not really a thing. It seems to be just defined by its
And so,
applications.
do they then grapple with the idea that it's very difficult to regulate something that's not defined?
No, no.
Yes. Okay. I think that's probably a key point, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And so,
yeah.
how are humans depicted in this?
So it comes back again to this binary dualist thing, humans on one side and AI on the other. And ultimately, there seems to be this utter faith in the fact that at bottom, we'll be able to handle it. We'll be able to take responsibility as humans, and to, in various ways, manage, regulate, control, dominate these AI systems. And so it does just come back to this sense of we're not interrelated with it, but it's a thing there. We don't exactly know what it is, but we'll be able to control it, or we
Mm.
should take responsibility and that kind of thing. So
So
yeah,
is the does it say we should or do they say we will?
it depends. That is one part where it does vary. I don't
Right.
know exactly, like, because you want to be able to say, well, it varies according to, national background or the
Yeah.
level of government or something like that. But it seems to be a bit just it seems to be a bit random
Yep. Because it's
But
interesting too,
there, yeah,
because there's the whole stuff about, even the head of Anthropic is like, talks about the risks that these things will kind of, be a law unto themselves or whatever, isn't it? So there's like
yes.
it's an interesting juxtaposition there between the governmental orientation, so we will kind of control these things, and people in the industry themselves that kind of seem to allay these fears about the impossibility of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that irrespective of whether they say we will control it, I think there's the fear is nevertheless constant. So even if people say we will, I think there's a sense, or if the documents say we will, there's nevertheless a sense that we very well may not be able to.
Yeah.
Um,
And so is that like this, the injunctions coexistent here with persistent fears of opacity and impenetrability, leaving humans out of the loop? So that's kind of a
yeah,
key
yeah,
thing that if we don't do it now, that will be the case
yes,
later. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So
So
yeah,
basically, yeah.
go on, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, just this is where we're at with it. Where the AI is, even though it's this nebulous system and it's a set of relations that we are bound to, it gets what we call reified, turned into a thing, as an object that we can control or something that potentially controls us. But it seems, nevertheless, that there's a lot of faith in our ability to still govern it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 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 Okay. So in terms of the research you've been doing in this area, can you kind of, sum up what's important in terms of your work and what this means in a few sentences, and maybe like with a nod to the future, think about where you think this may go over the next few years?
yeah, so I think what's important is that question of if we are increasingly interrelated with it, if we are forced to live with it, what do we do? Like, how do we actually approach this? And it seems like we might be sleepwalking a bit, thinking that it is this thing that's separate from us, that we
Mm,
can keep at arm's length and control, or that it will control us, but nevertheless will still be at arm's length to it. So I think what's important is that it throws up new questions about coexistence with non-humans. If we are to coexist with it, is there an alternative that avoids these questions of who controls who? Like, can we think about it in a different way? And that might be kind of itself a form of utopian thinking. People have criticized this for taking environmental thinking and putting it onto technology, because of course humans didn't create the environment,
mm,
but humans did create the AI. So maybe it's justified to have this dualistic thinking. But I do think that it raises new questions about living with these interrelated systems.
yeah,
Where the world is heading, I don't see things changing. I don't see people, uh, especially people with the possibility or the ability to make decisions, reconsidering this dualist approach. So yeah, that's my whether that's a bad thing or not, I don't know. That might
yeah,
be the correct approach, but
yeah,
I don't see it. I don't see it changing.
yeah,
And so yeah, we have to really perhaps think about exerting control and governance management and
mm,
just trying to limit the damage that it could potentially do.
yeah, yeah.
That might be the yeah.
That's the key takeout. Yeah, I think I think I agree with that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Jeff. I'll leave it there, and yeah, really happy to talk to you about this today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.